a brand new episode of Translating Love. I'm Danny.
And I'm Wolfgang.
Did you forget your name there for a moment?
I'm just trying to take it slow today.
Why do you take it slow?
And that must be so annoying for everyone
today?
to listen.
Yeah, totally.
No, it's late today and I'm trying to chill and trying to...
Oh yeah, we should probably a disclaimer. He's almost 30 and it's 6:30 right now in the evening, so it's pretty late.
It was late. I already had supper and I'm in my...
He had supper at like 4 p.m.
I'm in my jammies, ready to hit the bed.
Sitting in your rocking chair.
Yeah. And outside on the porch and yelling at the youngsters.
The hooligans.
Get out of the street!
The whippersnappers.
Yeah. Slurping on my coffee or calf as the young people say.
Is that what they say? Yeah. Calf.
Calf.
Need
or the
calf.
Or the old brown soup.
Ooh, I don't like that. The hot brown soup.
The old brown soup. But if you're at the doctor, that means something different.
Do you say that to your doctor
yeah.
when he asks you how your stool is? And you're like, well, it's the old brown soup. We're not going to talk about poop again this time. We did that too much last.
Let me tell you, doctor.
By the way, anyone who listened to the last episode, I'm very, very sorry. We talked about poop for way too long.
I don't think...
Way too long.
To be honest, I don't think there's...
I think it was like 10 minutes or something.
And I have to say, I really enjoyed it. I did too. Back to the whole episode, and I have to say... But the pooping part was the best thing.
But not everybody's like us. Or that's an interesting thing to talk about. Some people are like how I used to be with that topic.
But that's why we are here to break boundaries. We're here to
break down walls.
To talk about stuff that is not talked about. We're here to make you think about yourself. We're here to make you reflect on your behaviors, on your bowel movements. Look at them through a different vision or angle or lens. Yeah.
They're the brown glasses.
Yeah. Also, I mean, this is the episode 22, I think, if I'm not wrong. And I think I'm going to name the episodes actually like in a number, like I put the number in front of the episode name. I think I'm going to do that from now on because it's easier to refer to an episode.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
true.
Also it makes it easier to keep track of how many episodes we've done already. But also we're coming up to episode 25, which will be a milestone. And also, I mean, at some point we're running out of ideas. So poop is like an easy segue into fun.
Yeah.
And I think every time we have a guest on from now on, we're at least trying to try to push in the poop a little bit.
I don't think my dad's going to like that when my dad comes on. Spoiler alert, my dad is coming on soon.
I think I'm going to try that. Okay. Like in a subtle way, like he's going to talk about his feelings and then I was like, by the way, feelings, how was your bowel movement today?
How did your poop feel today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
anyways, this is way too long again about poop.
But yeah, concerning feelings.
But first of all, thank you to all of our listeners so far and anyone who just stuck around past all of that nonsense.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for still being here.
That's true.
And everyone who's given us feedback and answered questions that we have in terms of when we ask questions on Instagram to help us with our episode. That's also lovely.
Also, a little disclaimer or a little thing that, I mean, our intention for this podcast was to make something that is fun for both of us and maybe put something out there that is valuable to some of you.
And also to open up our own personal communication with each other.
Right. But also I think at least that was our intention a little bit, to make it something that like a couple can enjoy, but also a single person can enjoy, or also some individual people, even if they're in a relationship or not, doesn't matter. But I think the fun thing would be, or at least that's my way of thinking, I like to listen to things like that together, like as a couple, because I don't know, you can talk about the topics right away, or you can like, I don't know. I mean, at least that was our intention when we started the podcast, because we listened to a similar podcast, or to a podcast that was basically a thing we listened together, and it was kind of fun. And
it always like struck up a conversation for us. Like sometimes we would pause the podcast where we were, and so we could talk about what they were just talking about before they switch, and we forget. And,
So maybe if you're listening right now alone and your partner is, I don't know, doing nothing, sleeping or working, maybe,
or if you have a friend who you might think would like it or something,
then maybe try to convince them to either listen to the podcast with you or individually. Doesn't matter. But yeah, I think that might be an interesting thing to do. But let's get to the topic today. Yeah. It's been that's a long intro
it is
already.
A long intro.
But today's topic is I don't know, an interesting one, I think. And the main intention was because if you think about men or boys in particular, that showing emotions is not super easy for them in a lot of ways. Obviously, that's not only for men. That can also be for women. Well,
I think, and we'll get into this, but I think women have kind of an opposite problem in terms of how it's seen when they're emotional and how it's, but we'll get into that.
And I mean, the main topic is basically like, why is showing emotion hard or can be hard? Mm-hmm. And I mean, the obvious answer, or more the go-to, is the stigma, or I don't know, somehow the way you grow up, either as a boy or as a girl, you tend to be put in this certain light or in this certain corner where you are either not allowed to show emotions, not allowed to cry, because that's weak, that's showing weakness. Obviously in a certain age, as a baby, hopefully nobody's yelling at you not to cry. But as a young boy, you basically get told a lot not to show your emotions, not to cry, because that's what little girls do, which is also, not the
Although
best thing to do.
Although I think that's starting to become different now with young boys, just because of how everything is changing in a lot of...
It's a generational thing.
But I think with our generation, maybe one below us, that's a big problem. And obviously the ones above us, it's a really big issue.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up basically like that. I grew up getting yelled at when I was crying. I grew up...
You get yelled at?
Yeah, I get
by
told...
your dad?
Yeah,
or?
I got told multiple times by friends and by family members not to cry, not to show emotions like that.
Because it's not manly, or
because,
what?
Yeah, because men don't do that, because you don't cry, you don't do that.
Because you have to be strong, and you have to... Yeah.
And therefore, it's like you basically... take away a lot of ways how to express feelings and emotions. And I don't know, it's fucking hard to relearn that in a way, because I mean,
not even relearn it, to learn it for the first time when you're not a kid anymore, when it's already so drilled into your brain.
Yeah, it's systemically undermined, basically. You get told to not cry, you get told to not show your emotions, to not be weak like that, to not behave like a girl, which is so stupid that people still say that.
But even if you don't get specifically told that, it still gets drilled into your brain, because either you see it in your own family, like you never see your dad cry, you see your mom cry, but you've never seen your dad cry, or you never see any of the male role models in your life cry or show any emotion other than anger or things that are quote unquote manly. And I think you just... And you see it in movies, you see it in society. I mean, you don't see men cry.
Not a lot, no.
Very often in your daily life.
I mean, nowadays it's a little different. But even if you go on Instagram, on Facebook or stuff like that, there are a lot of awesome personalities who show or try to portray real life or their real life, and then they put stuff on where they're crying or being emotional and stuff like that. You don't see that from men. Almost never. Mm-hmm. And if you see that from men, it's not a stereotype or something, but it's mostly from gay men.
I wouldn't.
At least from my perspective, and that's not something that is meant to be in any way bad or anything. I think that, or at least from my perspective, homosexual men are more in touch with the feminine side, or can be more in touch with the feminine side, which is a good thing because that's exactly what you need. It's like yin and yang. It's like both sides are good and both sides are needed, and you can't
have yin without yang, and you can't have yang without yin.
And at least from what I've seen on social media, I've never seen like a straight man cry on social media. At least I don't know anyone, or if I'm not following anyone, I've never seen that. I've seen it in gay men, and I really like that.
I've seen it, but only in relation to like recent things, like with the George Floyd things and all of that happening. A lot of men specifically came forward and made videos and shared their thoughts, and that that was then something I saw, but that was a new thing for me to see too.
But that's what I mean. That's what I mean. It's not something that is super common, and it's a sad thing, especially if you grow up basically get treated like your feelings are not.
They don't matter.
They don't. No, I mean I wouldn't say it doesn't matter, but they get
that you're
they
not
get
allowed
shut down.
to cry. That means that specific feeling doesn't matter. That emotion doesn't matter because you shouldn't be having it. Yeah.
It's basically, for men or for most men, it's the feminine side, or the feminine, the feelings that are called feminine are shut down.
Quote feminine.
Right. Basically, you get told that crying or showing emotions, or even if you're touched by something like a movie or like a wedding or something beautiful, you shouldn't cry as a man. That's something that doesn't occur. That's just something that you shouldn't do.
There are some people who say it's only okay for a man to cry if like someone he loves dies or something, and then it's okay, like at the funeral. But there's the other side of it where some people say it's literally never okay, like even if somebody dies, because you're supposed to be strong for your family, or you're supposed to be strong for the other people who are suffering, which is so outrageous.
I remember multiple times, like when I was 16, 17, a little later even, we went to the cinema and we watched movies a lot, and if there was a scene or something really touching, I mean, it was not super easy to not cry or to hold it back. And I mean, it was dark, so nobody could see me, and so I did that. But then I tried to wipe away my tears and tried to not came across like I did just cry, because I mean, knowing my friends and knowing the people I went there with, nobody would have judged me. Nobody would have laughed at me. But still, it's something you just don't do.
Well, it's also
it's so fucking stupid.
It's also not just related to like crying or sadness, but there's other emotions that would also be seen as quote feminine.
No, sure.
Such as like if a boy pushes a girl down at the playground, or if a boy is mean to another girl. So many times when that girl comes, I mean, at least when I was younger. If I would, my parents never said this, thankfully, but if I would talk to other people's parents or other, like my friends' parents, and I say, oh, he was so mean to me today and he did this and this, and they would say either boys will be boys, which I hate, or they would say, oh, that just means he likes you. Yeah. And so then we're taught at this young age, basically, that, and I think we've talked about this before, but then we're taught at such a young age as young women that that's how we're shown that we're valued and that we're liked, is by boys being mean to you, and you carry that with you. I carried that with me from when I was 8 years old. Yeah,
every time I shove you in the sand, what is it called? Sandbox. You were like, come on, let's make out.
He likes me. He really likes me. But that whole concept is like, boys aren't allowed to be sweet when they're younger like that. Like they're not allowed to show any type of like sensitive emotion towards whether it's a girl or a boy or whoever that they like. They can't show that emotion because that's seen as sensitive and feminine and that's not what boys do. That's what girls do.
It's the whole thing is messed up, because if you think about it, why is there even a thing like that where feelings are feminine, or where feelings are not
they shouldn't be classified
like, I mean,
by
we're all
gender.
right. We are all human beings. We all have the same feelings, and we all need to express them somehow. But let's dissect it a little bit. But first, let's take a break.
Okay, let's take a break.
And we're back from the little break. Yeah, let's dissect that. I mean, okay, you're a little boy or a little girl and you are getting told things that are obviously not right. Like, you shouldn't feel those things, or you shouldn't express those things. So naturally, what is happening, you grow up to suppress certain feelings, to bottle them up and just push them down and not show them ever.
Yep.
And I mean, the natural thing that happens is you either tend to lean towards other emotions that are more accepted. For example, with men, that's like anger is like a really common one, like being angry for no reason. And I think that's
easily aggravated.
Right. I think that's a reason. When I read an article earlier about that stuff, and I think that's a big part of my anger, or where my anger stems from, because I know I struggle a lot with showing my emotions and being open about them, and also just letting the water flow certain times. And I think that's also part of the reason why I can be super angry about the most stupid stuff.
But I also think that it not just affects that part, but I think it also affects how you handle other people's emotions.
Yeah.
Because, and that's the point I wanted to make with women, where I think with men, they're told more that you can't show emotions, you can't be sensitive, you can't all of those things, you can't cry. Yeah. But with women, I think that I don't ever think we're necessarily told not, like by our parents or by other people. It's pretty rare that we're told not to show emotion or so much emotion. But I think in relationships that comes really heavily, and this has happened with us sometimes, where we might be fighting, or I might be feeling my emotions really strongly. Yeah. And you'll say something like, you're so sensitive, but it's such a negative way to say it. That's true. And so then it makes me feel bad for having emotions at all. It makes me feel bad for being in tune with my emotions and letting myself express them. I do think there is a line of, I wouldn't say too emotional. I don't like that wording, but I think there's a line of
being too much of a pansy.
No, a line of overreacting is probably the best word, or letting your emotions take over to the extreme, where you're not thinking clearly
like
anymore.
The other day when the window was open and the wind hit you and you're like, ow, the wind just hit my tush, that hurt. And then you cried, and I was like, Danielle, it's so nice, just let the wind in. And you're like, I know, I can't, it hurts.
Or like the other day when you dropped the oat milk out of the fridge and it spilled all over the floor, and you just started smashing everything in the kitchen. You were like, this is ridiculous.
That never happened.
I didn't drop it. It fell on its own. And you can't blame me for it. And I'm going to smash everything to pieces.
That never happened, Danielle.
Because, anger with men is...
That never happened. But it's interesting. And it's also kind of makes sense that men especially lean towards other stuff where they can either suppress their emotions or not have to ever face them. Like a lot of work, just trying to keep them busy all the time, just trying to basically be doing something all the time. I mean, it's the same for women. I know some women who do that. Or even do something where they can show their emotions, like drinking with buddies, going out to bars where they can be like super close, handsy with buddies, or even sports. I mean, I think that's a big thing for men.
Yeah.
Where they can be in this massive crowd of people, just be themselves, hug men, high five them, just slap them on their asses, cry when their team wins, and stuff like that. They let out all that bottled up shit that's going on there. But it's so messed up that you need like an event like that, or like an establishment. Right,
somehow.
right. You need to have something like, yeah, I drank like, I don't know, 4 beers and I got a little emotional, stuff like that. You need something like that as an excuse to show something that should be natural.
You can't just say, I got emotional at this, at something. You have to say, I did this and that's why I got emotional. Like I drank and that's why I was emotional. I was, whatever it might be.
Right.
But I just wanted to ask you if you think that that's true for you, that or fair, because you didn't show as much emotion when we first started dating as you do now. Like that's gotten better in terms of like you're more comfortable with showing your emotions. But you still sometimes react to my emotions in a way that makes me wonder if that has something to do with this whole thing that we're talking about, where maybe you're triggered by too much emotion.
I don't know.
Or too much emotion in quotes.
I don't know.
Because there's a lot of time if I'm emotional about something, that you'll say something negative.
That's true.
In regards to my emotions, not to the situation, but specifically to my emotions, and it makes me feel like okay, I'm not allowed to feel around you because
I think it's a tricky thing, because first of all, I shouldn't address something like that. I shouldn't make you feel bad for showing emotions or having them in the first place.
I think there's a way to approach it, like also, because sometimes I also don't realize if I'm like overreacting to something, or maybe there's something else behind it that I'm not realizing.
Right. Most of the time, that's the thing.
Most of the time I'm anxious.
Right. Most of the time, I already felt something, or I already know that there's something else. And what I actually mean is exactly that. But by being in there already and being a little heated, it comes out completely different.
But that's not always how you mean it.
It's not.
There have been times where you just say you're too sensitive.
But most of the time, that's why I said most of the time. It's the thing is, it's something I need to work on, because it's not fair and it's not good.
Well, I think that it will also help you in terms of, because a lot of times my emotions are not intended to make you like feel bad or something. It's more, this is just how I'm feeling right now, and I want that to be clear. And a lot of times I use those emotions to try to like draw you into your own emotions, because you should feel things too, and you shouldn't go directly to anger or go directly to avoidance.
I mean, that's a good
rather
point.
Come into the emotion that I'm feeling and try to understand it.
That's a good point, because that's something I'm trying to do and learn, because especially with my anger stuff, that's basically part of bottled up things that I'm not letting go or dragging along or whatever. And I rarely let myself feel things. And the thing is, I know how elevating and I know how good it is to just cry sometimes, to just let things out and to just be emotional. But I know it for myself, like working and being busy all the time and just doing stuff constantly. It's super hard to just step aside, sit down and just go in yourself and just listen and just feel things that you need to feel at that moment.
But I think it makes it extra hard we're talking about more men in particular, but there are women who are like that too. But just for the sake of the podcast or what we're talking about, let's just say men. But I think it makes it extra hard for men, the fact that they feel like they can't express their emotions. It makes it then even harder for them to accept emotion from other people, or to be able to empathize with someone else's emotions, especially in a relationship where it's like, I don't understand your emotion because I don't feel it. Therefore, I'm pushing it away like it doesn't matter.
That might be true for some people. Some people might be better with that. I don't think it's correlated, but that might, there's definitely a connection between those two. But I think the biggest problem that you have yourself, if you're in the position where you can't, or you feel like you're not allowed to show emotions, is when they come up. And they come up even if you don't want to, even if it's just like anger, or like you're quick to being angry, or other stuff. You're all of a sudden super emotional and you don't know why, stuff like that. It's really hard to handle those feelings in that situation because you never learned how to do that. And you also, and it's basically like a little volcanic eruption. Is that right? So you basically suppress it, and at some point it just shows, it just comes up. And you have no fucking idea why right now, or why so much. It can become
really problematic in the future then.
Right. And I think the biggest takeaway here is to just learn how to deal with your feelings. The thing is, everyone has feelings.
And you can do that with therapy.
Right. And that's why I just want to say a big thing for that is just talking about it. And talking with a specialist, with someone who specializes. Yeah, that was wrong.
Spätzle.
Specializes in that kind of topic should be a good partner to talk to, and they can give you advice in how to, I don't know, be more
in tune
with your emotions. Right. It sounds weird, or it sounds stupid. It might sound stupid.
I don't think so.
But that's what it is. That's what it's all about, because you don't want to be one of those parents or one of those. I mean, if I think about my dad and my relationship with my dad, I don't like it. I mean, it's not bad, and it could be worse, but I wish it would be different. But I have not, or almost never seen a relationship with in my friends or my family where the relationship is better with their dad, because there's always this emotional border, this wall where you keep talking towards that wall, and if you come to a certain topic, or if you come to this certain point, you stop. Where it would get interesting or meaningful or deep, you just stop.
That's why I feel so lucky to have grown up with a dad who is. I mean, he also had anger issues when I was a kid, but he was never afraid to show his emotion in other ways either. And especially now, like the more the years go by, the more sensitive and in tune with his emotions he becomes. And he's this absolutely beautiful human being. But in terms of like my brother too, I think my brother then learned a lot from that, because I mean, anger issues in general run in my family. It's also genetic, but I don't think my brother ever had the feeling that he was never allowed to show his emotions, or that he couldn't. And if he did, he didn't get it from our family or from my dad. He got it from
friends,
the world and society in general, which also teaches that.
No, sure. Everyone who gets taught those values and a lot of movies you see exactly that.
But I think it's really important in a relationship, or whether it's an intimate relationship or a friendship, that you never want to make the person that you love or this friend of yours feel like their emotions are not valued and are not worthy of being felt. And I think that maybe a lot of men don't understand this, but when you say things like you're being too sensitive, or you're overly emotional, or things of that nature, they come off very negative, and they are negative.
Yeah, they are,
And it's super damaging. And I think that's a lot where active listening is really helpful, because you don't necessarily have to understand your partner's feelings, but it's better to say, if you say something like, you're being way too sensitive, or stop being so emotional, if you say that, then it's negative. But it's better to say something like, I'm sorry you feel that way. You know, something like that, where it's like, okay, I feel like my emotions are validated. My feelings are validated. They might not understand them, but they care. I think that goes way farther than to say something like, you're being too sensitive, which just leads to a fight.
Right. I think the biggest takeaway here is, or the underline is that we are all human beings, and we all have emotions, and we all should express them. And we all express them in different ways, obviously, but especially if we're in a relationship, we should never express them in a destructive or hurtful way. It's a learning process, and in the end, it's up to you what person you want to be in the world, and what partner do you want to be,
and what kind of role model do you want to be, either for your kids or just for anybody, because you can be a role model for anybody.
And it's not about right or wrong, but it's more like, okay, if I look at my relationship with my dad, I know that I don't want to be like my dad. That's just simple and plain, but I know what I don't want to be, and I hope I can be that person when I have kids at some point. But and that's something I need to learn and still keep learning. So, and that's
well, and
that's
also
all up
you
to us.
can. I mean, this is for anybody. I'm not specifically talking to you, Boyfie, but just to be able to think about how it feels when you're angry. Nobody likes to be angry. I'm pretty sure that there's not a single person who enjoys being angry.
The Hulk.
He doesn't like it either, though.
Yeah, I don't know.
So many times when you see him start turning, he gets pissed that he doesn't want to turn because he doesn't want to feel that.
He's he has this pickle.
But think about what that feels like and how you don't want to be angry, but you are, and you just can't stop your blood boiling. And imagine if it could be completely different. If it could be you rarely get angry and you're able to, instead of getting yourself to that crazy blood boiling place where you're able to calm yourself before the storm comes.
I had a situation like that today.
It's so much more relieving and relaxing, and you feel like you accomplished something.
Right, and it's so
when you
unnecessary if you get angry because of stupid stuff.
What was your thing?
Yeah, I was driving on the Autobahn today, and this one woman cut me off, basically. She was coming from a different what is it called? Lane. And she basically just cut me off. And there was this boiling feeling already. I was like, nah. And I let it be. And I just watched her driving, and what a dumbass. But
it totally goes against what you're saying right now, because even saying those things,
I didn't say it, and I didn't. But now I do. Yeah, now
but even saying it now, just saying those things alone gives you a little something. It gives you a little bit of a rush, a little bit of adrenaline.
It's more in a fun way. But yeah, I was totally calm, and I tried to do that more because I get road rage a little bit.
I mean, it feels better to not be angry than to be angry.
I mean, sometimes it all feels good to just yell at the fucking driver.
Yeah, but I think it only feels good because you already let yourself get to the point where yelling something is more of your release of that anger. But if you don't even let yourself get to the anger, like for me, when I slam a door when I'm angry, it feels so fucking good to slam that door. See, but my point though is that typically those things only feel good because it's a release. Yeah. And if you never let yourself, but if you never let yourself get to that point where you need that release, then there wouldn't be anything. I mean, there wouldn't be anything to release. You would just be chill and calm and cool.
Yeah. Maybe don't poop angry. It's probably a bad advice.
Just comes like shooting out really fast.
Yeah, I feel like
and then you like do damage to your intestines and stuff.
I feel like you would push too hard when you
or your
poop
rectum.
angry. Yeah, you don't want that. So don't poop angry. Try to be in a calm space when you poop. And that closes the circle, Danielle.
Yeah. But I would just say, it's okay to feel things, and it's good to feel things, and it doesn't make you weak to feel things. It actually makes you strong to be so in tune with your emotions.
What I like to do when I feel those emotions coming up, I try to encourage them. Like if I watched a movie that made me sad, just cry. Or if I hear a song that reminds me of some event or some time and I get emotional, just do it. Stuff
and
like
there's
that.
Also nothing wrong with you if you don't cry. I mean, that's also fine. You don't have to force it, but don't actively hold back your emotions if you feel them, and just let yourself be human. And I also think that we talked a little bit about self-love on this podcast, and I think that you fall more in love with yourself when you're in tune with your emotions. Yeah. And you just see everything so much differently.
Yeah, I think you can be better. But I think that comes up to how and what you want to be in the world. So, yeah. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. If you are not subscribed, please consider. It helps us a lot.
It does.
Please rate the podcast on either Stitcher or Apple Podcast if you can. That would really help us. And as we say always, please share the podcast if you like what we do.
And we have a new thing, don't we?
We have a new thing on anchor.fm/translating love. No, that's translating -love. So anchor.fm translating -love. you can now support us. If you feel like, hey, we do a good job, you can.
And what is it like? You can do like
$1
a month, or
right,
you can do
$1 a month, or like $4.99 or $9.99 a month. You can always cancel it, so you can do a one-time payment, or you can keep doing it. If you like what you hear, we really would appreciate it. Again, we're not doing it for the money, but it's a lot of time, it's a lot of work that goes into all of that. And I know you all appreciate what we're doing. At least we hope so. But that's something you can do if you want to, if you feel like it. Yeah. Okay. I hope you liked it, and until next time.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.